1 year ago, your ship in Star Citizen was basic transportation from point A to point B. But within just another year, they could turn into the proper center of gameplay that they were always meant to be, with some very interesting gameplay features being implemented. I'm going to give you a quick look into several key changes that might change your ship from just a ship into the center of the game. And if you want to see how it all happens in real time, you can subscribe here to get weekly updates on what's going on in Star Citizen. And make sure to stick around until the end to find out how you can win a 400i exploration vessel and a copy of the game. Now let's see what ship-related features you might see in 2023. And to be clear, everything here has already been shown working in engine. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. Quantum travel changed in a big way back in 2018. Since then, the game has changed quite a bit and the quality of life has improved. Quantum travel still has some issues, but it's currently seeing a rework that started almost 2 years ago and is looking likely to finish up the known amount of work sometime next year. This, of course, would be in line with the introduction of master modes, which we first saw at CitizenCon. This would include Quantum Boost, the medium-distance travel method similar in ways to Super Cruise from Elite Dangerous. The Master Modes update overall will have an effect on our combat speeds, travel speeds, quantum boost speeds, and possibly the speed of quantum travel itself. And this large change covers one half of the overall flight and traversal updates planned. The other half would be the heat and control surfaces that we looked at a couple of weeks ago. This quantum travel rework will probably define what we know as warping or jumping in Star Citizen. It's set to include a complete visual overhaul according to the July monthly report and involve a feature-facing overhaul according to October, showing the extensiveness of what we can expect. We still don't have much idea of how it will differ in function, visuals, or even UI. It's actually one of only 2 features on this list that hasn't been shown in engine. And to be clear, everything here has already been shown working in engine. Yeah, I kinda lied, sorry. But I have a feeling we will be seeing it sometime in 2023, and it will be a fairly substantial change to quantum travel. We've seen various versions of the travel mode in Star Citizen videos here and there, and they all have very distinct similarities that I can only imagine are at least part of the goal of this rework coming to the game. The fire hazard is a feature we've been following since all the way back in 2020. It's gone through a lot of work in physics and visuals and the way that smoke affects the environment and how the fire itself does things like starve the room of air. All gameplay in Star Citizen is meant to be a game of risk, reward, and planning. Fire hazards are meant to be a big danger when you're on ships, and will probably play a big part in battles as the time to kill changes to the time to disable. In the meantime, physical damage would be allowing for ships to experience malfunctions and, well, fires. The gameplay surrounding this fire hazard might be similar to bailing water out and patching holes in Sea of Thieves. In Star Citizen, you'll need to deprive the fire of oxygen, use fire extinguishers, or repair electronics to keep your ship running. This is just one of a group of features, though, that aims to add a lot more value to each ship and every part of said ships. And as more of these features come online, ships will continue to become less of a tool to travel with and more of a home to maintain and live in. Many of these features are centered around resource management. The backbone of ship features. Resource management is a bit like exploration gameplay. On its own, it's an important feature and a big part of the game, but the way you can use all of its elements in other gameplay is pretty wild. If you want to know all there is to know, I made a video about this feature last month. But the short of it is, the resource network will allow us players as well as NPCs to interact with or control the gravity, power, lights, oxygen, and physical components of ships, space stations, landing zones, and ground outposts. This feature's pretty big. We've been watching it ever since the big introduction back in October of 2020. It saw a few complications in development and took longer than anticipated, but at CitizenCon 2022, about 2 years later, we finally got to see the actual in-game rendition of the feature. It's nothing too exciting, but seeing the ability to use relays to cut the power off in half of a ship and disable its shields from the inside tickles the brain with possibilities. Besides that, we also saw the life support system struggle to maintain oxygen levels for an overfilled room, the interactions between that system and fires, the ability to disable and enable gravity controls, and other things like temperature control. Of course, with all this importance comes the ability to assign roles to players on board, giving everybody unique permissions, forming actual crews in-game. We know this has been in work since late 2020, and can see it finishes up known work sometime next year in line with gravity controls, the fire hazard, and life support. So it's possible we could see first implementations of this along with all those other things in-game in 2023. This would likely be on the Hammerhead, Hull A, and Ares, according to the August monthly reports, but we have heard that they're trying to update many ships in the background, and it's possible that ships going back to a certain date have already been released with all of this in mind. We'll have to wait and see more in the first half of next year. The Cargo Refactor is actually already in testing and will likely be included in the next date of 3.18. This feature transcends ships, but it's separated into multiple renditions, as many things in Star Citizen are. This means what we're seeing now is part one of several Cargo Refactors and focuses mainly on their function with ships. That is, cargo will now be physically present in your ship no matter what type of cargo you use. Go to a kiosk and order goods, those boxes are on your ship. Find some loot and take it home, those boxes are on your ship. Take a courier mission with 3 pickups and 1 drop-off, those boxes are on your ship. And each of these boxes can be taken from your ship, moved to another ship, and sold for profit. This means plenty of sharing, working together, and properly transporting the booty from your last raid to go sell some of your loot, but it also means heightened potential for pirates. Something I talked about with one of the most prominent pirate groups in the game, Mongrel Squad, on my recent podcast. I'll leave that one in the relevant links down below for you. But this is a pretty big deal. It means everybody should have a multi-tool on them, and with that inclusion of soft death in the next patch, it means you're always in a bit more danger of that cargo attracting the wrong attention. I'll talk about soft death in a later video, but it's another big change coming to Star Citizen in 3.18. Now, this is all by design, but it is a bit intense, and there will be a lot of discussion and balance surrounding these changes. After the current refactor to cargo, we can expect to see freight elevators and persistent hangars coming online as well to support the trading side of cargo. At this point, players will be tasked with either manually loading the cargo onto their ships or hiring somebody else to do so, with associated loading times, hangar fees, and crew costs. Remember, this is supposed to be a sim, but that development is still a ways off. It's just, if you're into cargo, you better prepare yourself. Then there's always the other type of cargo. Drugs. People. This is an interesting one. Similar to salvage, it has been delayed quite publicly a few times. There's not much to know about this profession other than the fact that we know it's being worked on and have seen it working in a closed environment, but I can't find too much recent information on the feature in particular. It was heavily dependent on the planetary navigation mesh, which was introduced last year, but we can see on the progress tracker there was plenty more work besides that to get this feature out the door, and I imagine there's even more that's not here. But this will be a pretty big addition to the game, as it represents an entire career path and segment of the game being added. There are 3 forms of cargo gameplay in Star Citizen: physical goods, data, and personnel. These will all represent different career paths, with the latter depending on actual comfort level of your ship. Nicer ships like the 600i, Constellation Phoenix, or Spirit E1 will have less clients but charge higher prices. Might do some touring trips, or just an executive delivery from one planet to another. On the other hand, generalized craft like the Starliner will handle crowded and cheaper fares. Of course, these clients will either be NPCs or players in the game who don't feel like flying their own ships. Though there doesn't seem to be much emphasis on that second group of ships like the Starliner just yet, though I imagine we'll see more big people movers in the future. There will be things to consider in passenger transport like the routes you take, a good crew to have, the proper actor feature services like medical and food related, and of course, the Mixmaster, an actual beverage maker for your clients. Don't ask. There's an entire document, which is likely outdated, but will provide some insight into the direction of this feature. I'll leave it in my relevant links for this video as well. Regardless, this is still a pretty unknown feature. While we've seen some footage on it, we haven't heard that much about it, even though the scheduled work ended earlier this year. Because of this, I'm expecting to hear more about it soon, and hopefully we'll see it in the game sooner rather than later. Salvage and repair are kind of weird features to have on this list, but that's why I wanted to focus mainly on the repair side of things. This is a feature that speaks solely to the history of our ships, which over time is going to be something people grow very proud of. As time goes on and new features come online and annoying bugs stop occurring as much, our ships will last longer and longer. And things like what planets you've been on, how often you get your ship touched up, the heat damage of your VTOL thrusters, and the battle scars of your fights will all be on full display to anybody who sees your ship. Repair is a small step in that process. This is a feature everybody will see, because as your ship takes damage and you patch it up with your multi-tool, whether that be with someone else's hull, I'm not judging, or some material you've bought yourself, the places you repair the ship will persist. The paint won't be renewed, rather you'll have a scar where that hole in your ship used to be, as a reminder. It took a while for the supporting features like the damage maps to be ready for this, but repair should be a new ship-focused option for all players to try out and maybe even make some money with when Alpha 3.18 goes live. The other feature on this list we haven't actually seen working in engine yet are the vehicle tractor beams. But we kinda have, because handheld tractor beams are here and we use them all the time. For vehicles, things will obviously be scaled up. These beams will be systemic and take into account the mass of the object you're trying to move, be it a box, another vehicle, or even an asteroid. Due to the more sim-like nature of the feature, anything that is interactable, given you have the combined tractor beam strength to move the mass, can be moved. This was confirmed in the SRV Q&A. And yes, it includes asteroids. The SRV is likely the ship that will introduce the feature, being that the ship is built around the function of its tractor beam and has been progressing through the ship pipeline over the course of 2022. This development timeline seems to line up with that of tractor beams by about 4 months. I don't think the SRV would release without tractor beam technology, but this does point to a near future preview at the very least, and I think a 2023 release. Key to note, there also seem to be a couple other vehicles lined up to use this tech, likely with one of them set to come with the feature, so keep an eye and an ear out on my upcoming monthly reports. Finally, UI updates. These are as evasive as the salvage feature was, but very stealthily so. For the longest time, UI was seeing no updates almost anywhere in the game. The team was working behind the scenes on a system called building blocks that ditched Flash and allowed for more robust designs to be made on the fly in the game engine. Since then, we've seen several new UI, but there is still plenty we need. The star map update might be the most requested feature in the game at this point. We know there is a new HUD coming to ships. This here is actually the old version of that new HUD, but still a design we haven't had in game due to it being too busy. We also know there are other plans for scanning, and each manufacturer will have their own unique HUD, like the Drake designs we see here. In addition, MFDs, which are the small screens in your ship, have been teased for years now. It's also been worked on for quite some time, with 125 weeks of work starting in Q1 of 2021 and finishing up early next year. There's no knowing if it will actually be introduced, but we do see them popping up on monthly reports sometimes, so that's a good sign that they are coming up. There's also the star map update, though I'm not sure we can expect to see that in 2023. The UI for engineering that will come with resource management, the quantum travel UI, and AR marker updates look like possibilities for 2023 as well. It's been a long while coming, but I think we're going to start to see some more useful UI updates to ships in the coming year. These are the major ship features I feel we could see introduced in the game in the next 12 months. That we've already seen. There are plenty of other features that I have no proof or evidence of a close release, and I imagine even one or two of these will prove me wrong. But over the coming months, if you're sticking with me, I think we may still hear about things like atmospheric flight changes, hacking, and ship AI blades. But some of those likely only in passing. There's a lot that still needs to be done for this game, but there's a more important need to get ship features finished for Squadron 42. So keep an eye out for progress on the features mentioned here, and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on when you'll get to experience them. You can also get podcasts, gameplay videos, and feature deep dives here on the channel, and as a channel member, you can get exclusive videos every month. And if you want to win a 400i exploration ship in my birthday giveaway ending in mid-December, hit the giveaway link down below, and make sure to go back and find the secret code I left in this video for an extra entry. Supporters need not look. You'll get all the codes. Anyways, I hope you learned something in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.